Good afternoon and welcome back to the proceedings of Day 2 at Dhaka Media Summit 2022. Now we'll move on to the research panel entitled Digital Media, Power and Contestation in Contemporary Indonesia, presented by one of our associate partners, LSPR Communication and Business Institute, Jakarta, Indonesia. Dr. Hersinta from LSPR Communication and Business Institute is chairing this session. Dr. Hersinta lectures in the postgraduate program at LSPR and currently is a postdoctoral fellow at Curtin University, Perth, Australia, where she earned her PhD as well. Her research interests include disability and internet studies with a focus on autism and social media and assistive communication tools for non-speaking autistics. The paper presenters in this session include Angelia, sorry for the mistake, pardon me. Angelia Loreta, Geofakta Razali, Adithiyasanti Sofia, and of course the panel chair, Dr. Hersinta herself, will also present one paper. So I'd like to request the panel chair, Dr. Hersinta, to take over from here and conduct the session. Dr. Hersinta.
Thank you, Dr. Barbak. Can everyone hear my voice clear?
Yes.
Hopefully?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for introducing us, Dr. Barbak. And good afternoon, everyone from Jakarta. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And probably good morning and probably also good evening to all of you who is located in different time. Thank you for joining our research panel session today. Dr. Barbak already introduced me. I'm Hersinta. I'm a lecturer from LSPR Institute of Communication and Business in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I'm also an adjunct postdoctoral fellow at Curtin University in Perth, Western Australia. I will be the chair for the session, and we will have 4 interesting presentations today under the topic of digital media in Indonesia, audience access, and commodification. So let me give a brief introduction about the session's topic. As the popularity of the internet began to rise in the 1990s in Asia, including Indonesia, actually this new medium of communication was seen as a more democratic medium as it eliminates the distinction between producers and consumers. And previous study, such as by David Phil and Krishna Sen in 2005, show that the internet has a distinct role in Indonesian political movement at the end of the 1990s. And other studies by Yanuar Nugroho in 2011, and also other studies by Marlina Lim in 2013, show that online activism is becoming more prominent in Indonesian civil society in the era of the year 2000. So we can see in the past 15 years, we spot a particular trend emerge in Indonesian media industry. The great potential of digital economy in Indonesia is opening many opportunities for digital startups and media companies to join the market competition. We see Gojek, we see Shopee, Tokopedia, and other digital startups now become like the giant companies. They started to escalate their business strategies in producing contents and services using online platforms. And with the increasing number of internet users in Indonesia, I think last year in 2021, we got 200 million users, internet users, from total population of 274 million people. And the most frequently used social media apps in Indonesia are WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And some of these social media we will discuss in this panel. I guess similar trend is also happening in other countries in the world. And this phenomenon brought us to some questions about how digital media platform can be used, how this alternative media can give access for people to have their voices, and also from the industry side, the commodification of the platform. So we propose some general questions to be discussed in this panel, include how does social and digital media utilized by the audience from different groups like from the user, from the individuals, from communities, and also from media companies? And what are the impacts of having greater access to social and digital media platform? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges raised from the digital media revolution in Indonesia? And all four papers presented in this panel will discuss further about those questions, the impacts of digital and social media from different contexts. The two first papers are in the form of current work in progress. They will talk about how digital platform provides business opportunities for companies in monetizing the user-generated content, while two other papers are in the form of published works that will discuss about how social media can give access for its users to participate in environmental activism and also to advocate on behalf of people with disability, in particular autistic people. So each presenter will have 15 minutes to share their papers. I see already all presenters are here, Dr. Geofakta, Wirawan, and Ms. Angelia and Ms. Adithiyasanti. So each presenters will have 15 minutes to share their papers, and after all present their papers, we will have the question and answer session. I will remind every presenter, that include myself, because I also present the last paper, when the remaining time is 2 minutes left. Kindly reminder to all of you, the presenters and all the participants, to mute your microphone when you are not talking. And anyone who wants to ask questions, please feel free to write down in that chat column, and we will discuss those questions and commentaries on our question and answer session later. So without further ado, I will give the opportunity to our first presenters, Dr. Geofakta Razali from STIAMI Institute of Social Science and Management, and also Wirawan, the second author, from postgraduate program LSPR, to present their paper. Please, Dr. Geo and Wira, the screen is yours and you can share your slide.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hersinta, for welcoming us. And then my partner, Wirawan, will help me to share the screen. Thank you, Wira. And then, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are pleased to meet you all in this virtually in this forum. And today, I and my partner, Wirawan, are going to present our research that has not been done yet, but it is still the progress. Therefore, we will be very likely to receive any feedback from you from this forum. But before going further, I would like to introduce ourselves. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Geofakta Razali. I have received here, my doctoral degree in communication studies. I work as a professional PR and Marcom, and then some activity like teaching and research. And also for this time, I lead a training center that focus on digital marketing, branding, and public speaking. And I also interest range from communication management to critical media and cultural studies. And my partner, Wirawan, is a communication professional on the weekdays. And he is a master student on the weekends. And he received his bachelor degree in digital journalism and currently pursuing his master in communication management at the London School of Public Relations. Despite working in the field of marketing communication, his research focuses on digital religion, media and society, and intercultural communication. Okay, thank you, Wira. Wira will introduce the background of this research. Please, Wira.
All right, thank you, Dr. Geofakta. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our research is about a ghost and mystery as media commodity. Basically, this research mainly focuses on investigating why Tirto.Id, an Indonesian online news media, produces mystery and ghost stories in their podcast program and how they perceive this practice. We noticed that this practice may raise questions basically on on basic journalism principles, because as mentioned by Kovac and Rosencials, the first commitment of journalism is to the truth. And the essence of journalism is the disciplines of verification. When journalism media is involved in producing horror and mystery story, the role of journalists in presenting verified information is called interdopt, because basically supernatural stories, horror, ghost-related stories are spread mouth to mouth and live in a society as a legend, myth, or something that can't be verified. There are some, although this practice may raise issues on basic journalism principles, but in fact, there are some news media in Indonesia that produce contents on horror and mystery, like Tirto through its incentive podcast channel, Kompas through its Tinggal Nama podcast channel, and Kumparan on its exclusive channel named Kumparan Plus, and so on. Basically, previous research on ghost and horror and other mystery stories have been done by previous researchers, but they mainly focus on entertainment media, especially on films and TV reality shows. Moreover, most of these studies focus on framing or semiotics and highlights that Indonesian horror movies try to highlights the sensuality and commodify women's bodies. However, there is no investigation has yet been conducted to study horror and mystery contents that is produced by the news media. All this time, the concern is more likely to highlight contents from entertainment media like movies and television programs. Therefore, our research is proposed to fill this gap by looking at the practice done by the Indonesian news media.
Okay, thank you, Gra. And let me introduce you a little bit about the program incentive by Tirto.Id as the case. So the incentive is a podcast channel maintained by Tirto.Id. Notably, incentive by Tirto.Id release various themes and contents ranging from politics to pop culture. But one thing that is interesting to be highlighted is that it's also produce horror, mystery, supernatural, and ghost-related contents for this time. Meanwhile, this kind of information are exceptionally complex to be verified. So the horror stories were successful in the 90s era. Until now, even the last 3 decades are still often produced by the media and now and journalistic basic. Means we're gonna find the relation between agency and agent to represent a duality of structure. We assume that this case because the political economy maybe or something else reason behind. And then our research question is, why do journalists in Tirto.Id produce them and on their podcast channel, and how do they perceive this practice?
Well, in analyzing this practice, we are gonna look for Giddens structuration theory. Giddens mentioned that social scientists need to look at the structures and that serves as the foundation for a particular social group in order to understand its communication. Structuration theory highlights the idea that human action is the source that produces or reproduces the social context in which they live. Or in other words, structuration theory focuses on investigating why a particular action is produced, reproduced, and transformed in the society. There are 2 main concepts that are introduced by Giddens. The first is agency, and the second is agent. Agency is the behaviors and actions that are performed by people in a society. Those behaviors and actions are guided by some rules and contexts in which behaviors or interactions occur, while people who engage in behaviors and those actions are referred as the agent.
Yeah, and now we already know that link between the agency and the structure is the root of the duality. All social action in a system will construct the structure. As that I mentioned before, the horror stories were successful in the 90s era until now, and we're gonna find the relation between agency and the structure. The key to Giddens theory is this emphasis on the agent's knowledgeability and the reality that the agency cannot access or be studied independently of its structure. And then our research uses a qualitative approach because it involves the subjective view on some environments. This research also make it possible to present a constructivist paradigm in constructing an argument. And we also use the case study method to collect data through in-depth interview and the observation.
All right, and this is the timeline that we have been done until today, from brainstorming, conducting some literature review, drafting the research introductions to the methodology, and also we have done some pre-research data collections like listening to the podcast, and also find some literature based on ghost and horror stories that are produced in Indonesia. And today we present our idea, our progress in this forum, Dhaka Media Summit 2022, and our future actions. We are going to, make some personal approach to the journalists or to the media production team from the incentive podcast channel by Tirto.Id. Soon we are gonna conduct some in-depth interview, and if it is possible, we are going to visit the office or the production area to observe directly how they produce the podcast program. And finally, we assume that this practice may reflect that horror and mystery has become part of Indonesian audience preference. Therefore, it may attract more attentions, views, and clicks because, as mentioned by Dr. Geofakta before, horror stories, ghost stories has been part of Indonesian audience since 1980s through the most popular actress Susanna. She is the most popular horror actress in Indonesia. But until 4 decades, this practice, or the horror and ghost stories still be part of Indonesian audience favorite. So this assumption may lead to the process of commodifications of ghost and mystery by Indonesian news media. I think that's all that we can present our progress in this forum, and we are very delighted to receive your feedbacks or any constructive criticism on our idea. Thank you, Dr. Hersinta.
Yeah, thank you, Wira. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's allow us to use inductive data and some analysis whose process goes from the facts to the or data to the theory, and then we will make some work about this case study. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Hersinta.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gio and Vira, for presenting your ideas. It is a very interesting topic, and then probably in the next Q&A session we can discuss later if you have some observation, whether the same tendency in monetizing this kind of content happens also in other news media companies. Thank you so much. And move to the second presenter is Miss Angelia Loreta from postgraduate program at LSPR. She will present about TikTok and audience monetization in Indonesia. It's like a similar topic, but in a different platform and with a different audience and company. I will invite Miss Angelia to present the paper. Please, Angelia, the screen is yours.
Ma'am Hersinta, I'm sorry. I think I need your help for me to present the screen.
To share the slide. Okay.
Yeah.
I will share your slide from mine. Is that okay?
Yes. Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Good afternoon to Dhaka Media Summit Chair, panelists, and audiences. It is truly my honor to present my ongoing research on this amazing opportunity given by Dhaka Media Summit, LSPR, and of course, Ma'am Hersinta. My research is entitled Content Analysis of TikTok Videos in Indonesia and Audience Monetization, aiming to discover the mysterious algorithm of newly emerged social media TikTok. Next, please, ma'am. Thank you. Allow me to introduce myself in brief. My full name is Angelia Loreta. Currently, I'm working as a KOL specialist in one of the e-commerce companies in Indonesia. I graduated from President University in 2020 and currently my status is a postgraduate student in LSPR Communication and Business Institute majoring in Marketing Communication. And we are about to discuss my ongoing research. I am looking forward to receive insightful feedbacks from the amazing panelists and audiences today to develop this research further. Next, please, ma'am. Thank you. Before we begin with, I'd like to ask if anyone here has ever watched The Social Dilemma, a documentary film by Netflix, because I'd like to share 2 lines that when I heard from the movie made me taken aback. Next, please, ma'am. The first line came from Tristan, a guy who used to work from Google. He said, if something is a tool, it genuinely is just sitting there waiting patiently. If something is not a tool, it's demanding things from you. It's seducing you, it's manipulating you. It wants things from you. And we've moved away from having a tools-based technology environment to an addiction and manipulation-based technology environment. That's what has changed. Social media isn't a tool that's just waiting to be used, because it has its own goals and it has its own means of pursuing them by using your psychology against you. And then the second line is, if you are not paying for the product, then you are the product. And by you, he means us. I rewatched the movie and found out about this quote last February, while I have started this research from last year. But I think it's okay. I guess that's what grounded theory research is all about, finding out one another puzzles along the way. So first of all, let's talk about TikTok, the history and what it really is. Please click once, ma'am. Thank you. TikTok was born as a merged application between Musical.ly from Shanghai, which launched in 2014, and Douyin, launched by ByteDance from China in 2016. In 2017, ByteDance bought Musical.ly, combining the 2 applications, and launched TikTok. Of course, everyone knows TikTok, an application that is popular for its short video content range from 15 seconds to now we can upload video up to 2 minutes. TikTok is also known as a platform that allows creators to be creative with the video creation process by providing users with interesting features such as filters, effects, transitions, music, and many more. Since its launching, TikTok's popularity keeps growing, skyrocketing until today. In July 2019, it reported to have 1 billion downloads worldwide with 500 million active users. And then a year later, in 2020, it reached 2 billion downloads with 800 million active users. According to the Sensor Tower website in October 2021, TikTok has been quite stable in its rank as the top 10 of most downloaded applications in Indonesia. In Indonesia, it started to gain its popularity around the beginning of pandemic situation. If anyone remember, the educational and informational content on the application started to draw audiences' interest. Many hashtags were related to early pandemic situation when people had to stay at home, working from home, and then attending online classes from home. For example, if anyone remember the tutorial of creating dalgona coffee, cooking tutorials, and also there are many DIY content, life hacks, language learning, and even school subjects. As TikTok is growing, the educational content lasts until today. Moreover, TikTok's unique and interesting point is in its algorithm. The algorithm for audiences is what distinguishes TikTok from other social media applications. Next, please, ma'am. Which will lead us to this discussion of TikTok's For You page. TikTok's timeline called For You page is uniquely created by its algorithm for each and every audience. Every audience's For You page is unique and different. It offers curated content based on our interests. For example, if you're a pet lover, then TikTok will offer videos about cats, pets, from funny videos to pet foods, how to train your pets, whatever pets, everything about pets. Please click several times, ma'am. Yep, this will be shown on our FYP. And then FYP of pet lovers will be different from audience who loves food, for example, or maybe Korean pop, or movies, or just casually loving general trending TikTok contents. Audiences' interactions such as liking, watching, sharing videos on the application determine content that will be shown on our FYP. Next, please, ma'am. What most audiences do not notice is this FYP and TikTok's algorithm actually acts as a hook. Interestingly, the hook or trap on social networking services is one of the methods suggested to fully utilize audience monetization. Next, please, ma'am. Yep, to the next slide. Thank you. Audience monetization is what a provider or company receives in return in exchange for providing free network services to the audience. Remember, if we are not paying for the product, then we are the product. This is actually necessary to develop business and services. By offering audience contents that suit their interests, it would result in the audience's engagement with the application, or they call it audience stickiness. Most of us, especially millennials or Gen Z, would say that, yes, of course, once we open TikTok, we could not stop scrolling through it for hours. Next, please, ma'am. Then this background lead me to two research questions. The first one would be, what category and content of TikTok videos generates the most engagement? And number two, how do TikTok creators use TikTok to monetize their audience? Next, please, ma'am. Thank you. In conducting this research, I am applying content analysis and also in-depth interview. Reviewing and citing from many previous research by scholars, I will be applying content analysis to find out the answer for research question number 1, and then in-depth interview for research question number 2. They mentioned that this quantitative method is allowing them to understand the platform and social participation constructed in it. By analyzing TikTok videos manually, they were able to develop and understand the themes and concepts underlying. And the similar quantitative content analysis is also applied by many previous researchers. In addition, the in-depth interview or qualitative research approach itself is recommended for future research to conduct research on new media, because it is suitable to apply to figure out why and what from an emergence of new media, why audiences are using the new media, what personal needs that are there to be met, and so on. Next, please, ma'am. Yep, thank you. So these are the raw results that I obtained from the content analysis of TikTok videos. The coding categories itself are built from general themes of TikTok videos that are usually found on the application. From the quantitative method of obtaining samples, apparently entertainment and comedy TikTok videos are shown as the most on a newly created TikTok account. This category and theme also has the most engagement. 45% of videos shown are entertainment videos, with 36% of them are comedy videos. And then the entertainment videos also generated the most engagement, nearly 62%, while comedy videos generated 45% of total approximately 96 million engagement. And then next, please, ma'am. For the next step, I will be reaching out to 3 TikTok creators with entertainment and especially comedy categories to find out answers for research question number 2. As this is an ongoing research, insightful feedback from today's panelists and also audiences would be very meaningful and helpful for me to develop this research further. Last but not least, I'd like to close this presentation by again citing from the Social Dilemma movie. Next, please, ma'am. Yep, there are only 2 industries that call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. Thank you for this amazing opportunity and wish me luck.
Thank you so much, Angel. Wow, what an amazing presentation. I feel like you are a detective who wants to unraveling the mystery of TikTok, find out the pattern of audience likeness and preferences, and that will be so interesting to know where the result will what the result will leading to. Yeah. So I would like to call our third presenter, Miss Adithiyasanti Sofia. Miss Diti, I usually call her. She will present her paper about Twitter and how this microblogging platform can be used for environmental activism in Indonesia in the case study of Safe Sharks. Okay, please, Diti, the screen is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from Jakarta. It's a pleasure to meet all of you virtually. Let me share my screen first. Okay, my name is Adithiyasanti Sofia. You can call me DT. Today I will share my research about social media, youth, and environmental law risk activism, a case study of Safe Shark Indonesia campaign on Twitter. This research also has been done with help from my advisor, Ma'am Hersinta, also, and it has been published. It may longer than previous presenter. I beg you to stay with me. Short introduction of myself. I'm a Bachelor of Psychology and Master of Science in Marketing Communication program. I'm currently working in one of NGO in Indonesia focused on waste management. I'm also a scuba diver. I'm having a big interest in marine conservation, especially for protection sharks and sea turtle. And why sharks? People think that shark is a human killer. Some of you may have the same thought, I guess. But they have an important role to keep the ocean balanced, and because they are one of the predator in the ocean. But although they have a big role in the ocean, shark finning in Indonesia is still high because Indonesia is world top shark producer, but also the third largest exporter of shark, not only for the fin, but the whole body of the sharks. And then there is a trend in society that if you consume or buy any shark menus, you will be a coolest person, or you are coming from a wealthy family. It's a prestige if you eat or buy any kind of shark menu. And then Indonesia has 116 species of shark in their ocean, but only whale shark is fully protected in Indonesia. There are still 115 sharks need to be protected. By those facts, a female diver in Indonesia and also my mentor for this research, named Riani Jangkaru, created Safe Sharks campaign. She started the campaign from her social media at first, and then she gathered some people with various background, including me, to voluntarily join her to run the campaign. This campaign raised issue regarding marine conservation in general and saving the shark population in particular. These are Safe Shark social media accounts. This followers number is less than the number during my research because the number is dropping due to the absence of activities both from the founders and the community. But with these channels, they were spreading out information massively about sharks in Indonesia, the type of sharks, how the finning situation, and how's the regulation, and many more of information. Safe Shark Indonesia also utilized online petition to make protests for any hotels or restaurant which was selling shark fins menu. Safe Shark Indonesia also collaborate with government, private sectors, and other organizations to spread education and create collaborative public campaigns such as campaign at school, at public spaces, also doing talk show, and so on. Then Safe Shark Indonesia campaign has transformed from one personal concern to become a big movement everyone can participate. By utilizing all tools in digital or social media channels, Safe Shark made themselves as an online environmental activism. What is the activism itself? It's a form of activity which involves the internet to trigger campaign, coordination, distribute information, petition, and engage with lobbying. We can see from the previous slide that SafeShack utilize all these things to be considered as online environmental activism. There is an advantage by doing online activism. By digital technology, it facilitates the widening social network for disseminating information, communication, and coordination in that movement. But as an activist or people who run the campaign, we have to be careful because it has a tendency for people doing selectivism or any lazy activism. It's like feeling good after just click the likes button or just click a sign button on online petition, and we thought that we are doing something big. But that's not a whole process of online activism. It's more than just click. So as an activist and the member of this community, I wonder how this campaign started from social media can make a real movement in the real life. Is there any specific factors or anything else? I came up with Ms. Hersinta also with the research objective to explore how online environmental activism can support real activism in the form of engagement and action among Indonesian youth. And also with the question of what are the implications doing those online activism on Twitter, and what kind of activism that can be derived from their online campaign. To investigate and answer the question, we use conceptual framework, first from Lovejoy and Saxton to examine function of tweets and activism. There's information, community, and action. And also we use Petean, Theoropoulos, and Harris to determine value of social media use in activism. There is a stage on social media like awareness, engagement, and action that will be analyzed on this research. So we apply also qualitative approach by doing content analysis of Twitter account SafeShack. It's called itong_hiu in the period of 9 months from January until September 2014. We use this data because in this period, SafeShack has gained a bigger network and support after its inception. We also interview 6 participants who is a volunteer and the member of the community to know about how they engage with the activism itself. So there are 465 tweets in those periods, with 60% of tweets are in action category. From those 465 tweets, we pick the highest engagement tweet from each month to find the salient topic. And based on the content analysis result, most engaging tweets come from action category. And the type of message the supporter prefer to share, it's also action message, following with the basic information. It is not surprise, because most of the tweets contain action message. So the follower assume were exposed with action message in their timeline. But it also an interesting part because recently there's a study in Indonesia said that a content in social media that heavy on advocacy has less engagement in their account, in their social media, regardless the number of the follower. So it's like, I don't know, it's like anomaly or it's like achievement, but SafeShack Indonesia highlighting the action function in their tweets. Another result from the interview, informants mentioned that they follow the account based on friends' recommendation or any personal interest from celebrities or any competition-related SafeShack campaign. In terms of engagement, they consider retweeting and forwarding information with their own language as an effort to engage with the campaign. And also in their definition, they did the action by spreading information not only in the online platform, but also having an offline discussion with some friends or any family members. They also see attending events, creating and buying a merchandise, and also creating their own campaign as a part of their action. There's one member of the informant is a teacher. She created her own campaign, a SafeShack campaign in her school to the students. So it's more bigger than the online campaign. It's the education at school. And in order to have the understanding, the same understanding with the founders' definition about the campaign, we also asked how they perceive the campaign. Half of the informant acknowledge that the campaign is about saving or conserving shark, and it has a critical impact related to environmental issue. And while others see is a campaign to stop eating the shark fin soup, is somewhat varies from the founder's definition, because she said that is a campaign to raise issue about marine conservation and protecting shark population. It's similar, but in different words. So I guess it's a challenge for an online activism to have to spread and to deliver the same message also. And speaking of low-risk activism, with those activities, Save Sharks campaign, reflecting to what Marina Lim said as a populist activism, with the online, offline, or in both forms, it could be transformed from public participant in social media. And to achieve the level of popular activism, it needs, one of them is a simplified narrative to make a message easily go viral, go big, go viral. And for this need, Save Shark has a short message that save sharks and save the seafood to be relatable to the audience. And gladly, the most informants were aware and acknowledged this message, and also they always using hashtag save sharks in their posts in order to grab more attention. Sorry. Another way to become a populist activism is by using an easy symbolization. Save Shark campaign using this funny cartoon character called Itong Hiu. Hiu is a shark's means in Indonesia as the symbol of the campaign. It's in order to change people's perspective and perception about shark as a dangerous creature, shark is a human killer. We show that shark is a funny animal and is a friendly animal to the people. And this iconic symboling is using in merchandise activities, and the face of Itong is aimed to create more awareness and to be relatable among the youth. So to conclude the result, Save Shark Indonesia shows to provide all types of tweets function in their tweets by highlighting the action message. And also, like mentioned before, that doing online activism has a tendency to become a lazy activism. Save Shark show that they successfully influence followers to do the offline campaign in a form of easy or low risk activism. And we saw that Twitter is a weapon to disseminate message, to build dialogue about the movement. As we can see in the Save Shark campaign, they reach out the youth and middle class audience as their main target audience. And for the limitation, because of the short period to analyze the tweets and small number of informants, it might give a partial description about online activism itself. Save Shark also need a scale up movement to achieve bigger mission. They have not reached out the local governments because it's still focused on to campaign in the urban areas such as in Jakarta on Bali. And last but not least, to create a creative campaign combining modern style and localized message is highly recommended, because the issue of animal hunting in Indonesia is very localized problem, such as you were allowed to do whale hunting in some areas in Indonesia because it's tradition from your great-great-great-grandfather. So it's the same case with the shark. It's like a tradition job to the fishermen, and they were allowed to catch the shark. Hopefully this research can give any contribution, not only for academic purpose, but also to save the environment, especially to save the sharks in Indonesia. Thank you for attention.
Thank you so much, Diti. It's a very, very interesting presentation. And for all of you, I'd like to acknowledge Diti is a long-time environmental activist who has many experiences in environmental campaign in Indonesia, and she also collaborates with our local government in Jakarta to develop environmental related policies. So we can discuss also about that. And yeah, I'm particularly interested also in the measurement to evaluate the effectiveness of online campaign that's used in the research. Okay, so we move on to the last paper. That's mine. Okay, I will try to make it quick and try to find where's my slides. Okay. Yeah, I will present my paper with the title of Framing Autism on Twitter, Investigating the Dominant Frames and Portrayal of Autistics in Indonesia. Oh, the slides jump automatically. So a little bit background for this topic. If we talk about autism in Indonesia, actually autism is a relatively new topic in Indonesia, both as an online and offline conversation. Considering the public history of autism in Indonesia has just started in the late 1990s, and the limited amount of academic research about autism in Indonesia becomes also my concern to start this research project. And historically, autism was detected in Indonesia in the middle of 1980s, so it was quite a long time ago. But the public awareness about autism in Indonesia just started around the year 2000, and it was particularly prevalent through online media. So this also happened in the same time with a significant increase in the number of internet and social media users in Indonesia at that time in the mid of the 2000. And autism itself, in medical definition, is clinically known as autism spectrum disorder or ASD. It is a lifelong neurological brain condition which affecting 3 areas in the child early years development, including language, socialization, and behavior areas. So actually, what is the relation between autism and internet, in particular social media and also Twitter in my study? So according to previous studies, the internet has proven to be potential to open up possibilities for people with disabilities, including for people with autism, for developing their social interaction and also provide information and support. So internet-based communication in the form of blogs, email, online forums, and social networking platforms give benefits to people with autism, as they could have greater control over social communication. For example, they have more time to construct their answers. They have more time to understand and interpret message from the other people they have in communication process. And social media were used by people on the spectrum. So actually autism is a very large spectrum from those who is, this is actually not a correct term, but we still use it, quote unquote higher spectrum, to the other side of the spectrum, like the non-speaking autistic individual. They can use social media to present online, to raise awareness, and use social media as a channel to communicate their existence, to share their stories to wider audience. And what about Twitter? Twitter, although we have now TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, in particular, has always been popular in Indonesia. Indonesia was ranked as the country with the highest Twitter penetration in 2010, based by comScore report, and also as the 5th country with largest Twitter users in the world back in 2012, with 29.4 million users. So the popularity of this microblogging platform makes it quite popular for activism, like Diti previously shared, and also for communicating particular issues, such like disability activists communicating their advocacy. And prominent figure like Ananda Sukarlan, if you ever heard about him, he's a famous music composer in Indonesia and is having an Asperger syndrome. This is a part of the autism spectrum category. He's also actively using Twitter to share awareness and to spread campaign on disability issues, including autism. So I choose to do the framing analysis on Twitter, as there is a research gap actually about media framing on autism. some previous studies about media framing, specifically on newspaper and television in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Australia, and also in China, indicate some tendency of biases in depicting autism. So actually both media in Western and Eastern countries tend to focus more on children with autism and their special talents in the news coverage, even though autism is a lifelong developmental disability. So it means that there's still stigmatization, there is still discrimination in the form of infantilization and sensationalized news coverage toward autistics found in the mainstream media. So I choose to do framing on Twitter because the mainstream media like newspaper, television, magazine can create what we call as a threatening space for autism, as autism was heavily depicted on lost frames, like news and stories focusing more on the negative outcomes. For example, stories from families facing a lack of resources, financial struggles on the news coverage about autism. So from some previous studies, it is also proven that Twitter has the ability for its users. So the users can use frames to bring attention and to bring attention on specific issues to public. So interestingly, Twitter has some advantages actually related to its news storytelling platform, as it creates an opportunity for collaborative filtering and curating of news. And as a result, social media platform like Twitter could provide as an alternative arena for discussing topics and issues beyond mainstream voices and stigmas, which largely found in the news media coverage. So this leads to the significance of my research. My research questions are mainly to explore more on how autism issues are discussed and how autistics are portrayed by the audience in Indonesia. And actually, is there any possibility that autistic people themselves have their own voices in social media like Twitter? My assumption is the online media platform can include more individual point of view on looking at autism, including from autistic people themselves to share their stories, to share their opinion. And it is also in accordance with the broader objective of my study to explore more on the autistic presence in Indonesia through online media platform. So for this purpose, I made a set of codebook for content analysis process. As you can see here in the slides, I divide some categories based tweets on age group, tweets on message types or message category, whether the tweets are in the form of news sharing or awareness raising or like content of promoting events, advertising, etc. And also the issues framing, like what kind of issues that people talk about on autism in Twitter. Is it like issues related with medical? Is it issues related with celebrity story, social and legal case, and other things? Okay, so for the data collecting procedures, I use Discover Text. This is a text and social data analytics software. This software is so good. So I can collect all tweets by using keywords such as autistic, autism, neurodiversity, special needs in Indonesian language. Tweets were collected during 6 months, and tweets that are not relevant, it means that tweets that not related to autism issues or not related with Indonesian context were deleted manually to obtain an appropriate and clean data set for my content analysis. So here are the results. I just include a bit of the results, not everything, because the time is not enough for this. So from the majority of the tweets, it was found that children are largely represented. You can see here in the pie chart, 65%, while other age groups like adult and teen only represented in the more small numbers, as you can see here. And this is not surprising, actually, because comparing to the previous study on autism representation in British and Chinese newspaper and television, there is a similar evidence on portraying autism as a condition that primarily affecting children. As I've said before, this is a biased portrayal of autistic and could lead to the tendency of infantilization of autism, or to discuss autism as a condition that only affects infants and children, while in reality, there is adult autistic, and autism itself is a lifelong developmental disability. So, but again, it is not surprising because as we can see in the next pie chart, this one, news from mainstream media is commonly the most form of tweets we can find on Twitter, comparing to other categories of message like promotional message, conversation, awareness, and other. Okay, and the further result give us like the popular category related to autism when people talk about it on Twitter. So the first prominent category is art and culture. Actually, this happens because the collecting data period is coincidence with Autism Awareness Month in April, and that time there were many art and cultural performances to celebrate the moment. And tweet on this category also contain information about popular movies and television series, such as Atypical, if you ever watched this on Netflix, and also The Good Doctor, and a movie called Please Stand By. From my observation, this form of popular culture like TV series and popular movies are seen as a useful reference to understand autistic as a person who has a different way of thinking than a quote unquote normal or typical person. And the second prominent category is the charity frame. So actually it contains information related to charitable donations, community events to support autistics, and organization related to autism. Most of the tweets depicting autistic person as individuals that need to be understood, along with the needs to be given supports and charity. And the third prominent category here is medical and science. So this referred to tweet about assessment, intervention, medical therapies, remedies, and news related to research on science and technological support for autism, such as these apps for communication or apps for therapy. And the last popular category is about infrastructure. Most of the tweets talk about the lack of health and education facilities for autistics and how the government should provide adequate infrastructure for autistics and their families. Some tweets also contain stories about parents' efforts in providing facilities and support for their children. So I can make a bit conclusion of these findings. Based on the results, there is a tendency of stereotyping, and I also found various understanding about what autism is. Autistic is portrayed as having an extraordinary talent or savant. If you remember a very popular Hollywood movie called The Rain Man, starred by Dustin Hoffman, that refers to savant character, someone autistic who has outstanding talents and skill. So these tweets using the words amazing, extraordinary. Well, in real condition, not every autistic has those savant talents, so it could be misleading. And on the contrary, autistic people are largely described also as a victim or a victimized group. They are also seen as a part of a vulnerable group, a minority group, from being discriminated and bullied in some tweets. And interestingly, there's also a different view on autism, like some Twitter user view autism as a disorder, like you can see from the example of tweets here. And other Twitter users still see autism as a disease or an illness to be cured and should be prevented. Although, as a matter of fact, autism is not a disease. And on the contrary, I also found another different understanding of autism. Autism is viewed as a different condition of human being or as a neurodiverse. This is probably a more inclusive and equal perspective in looking at autism. So I think I will close it by drawing on some conclusions. So the dominant frame related with autism conversation on Twitter is the medical frame. Most of the tweets largely perceive autism as a neurological and developmental disorder that could be detected from an early age. It discussed mainly about medicine, about treatments, and offering problem-solving strategies like doing intervention and therapy programs. But there are different views in understanding autism, including more inclusive perspective to view autism not only as a disorder or in a medical point of view, but also as a neurodiverse, a part of differences in humankind. And I think the most interesting part in my findings is I I find minority voices on Twitter. I find a conversation about autism from adult autistic people. So they share their stories, they share their experience, they provide firsthand experience from autistic themselves. So I think hopefully this study can offer us an extension on framing analysis and social media platform, that the news media still has a large influence on Twitter because many of the tweets are in the form of news sharing in Indonesia about autism. These findings also suggest that media could use Twitter for references on audience expectation of the news, and can also find some sources, the autistic people themselves to be interviewed actually. And more future research is needed to investigate the dominant frames shaping conversation about autism in Indonesia, both in online and offline platforms. And of course, further studies needed to explore how online platforms can be used as tool for people with disability, in this case, autistic, to conduct self-advocacy campaign. So I think that's all from my presentation. I'm looking forward to have a discussion, questions, and comments for this research project. Thank you so much. Okay, and now we move to the Q&A session. I think we are prompt in time. There are still 50 minutes or 25 minutes to have a question and answer. And let me look at the chat box. I saw some questions from the participants. The first question is from Pa Shafiq Asagaf. Pa Shafiq would like to ask question to Miss Angelia. How and is there a tool which you can use to classify those categories that show in the slides, such as types of content in TikTok? Okay, Angelia, you can answer this.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Sir Shafiq, for the question. The honor is mine. So, for the question, so previous research on TikTok is apparently still limited, as the new media itself just started to emerge and got very popular within these 2 to 3 years. So actually, it is also a challenge for me to find previous research as references. Therefore, it has many opportunities to be explored, as I am following several examples from previous research, and also Berger 1998 content analysis method. The categories in coding are allowed to come from researchers' early assumptions. So the categories itself come from a general TikTok videos theme that usually shown on FYP, and then when conducting the research, I create a newly created TikTok account. So the videos shown on the FYP wouldn't be biased from my own preferences. Hope that answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, Pa Shafiq, do you have another questions or comments? If you cannot speak directly, it's okay. You can just type it here in the chat box. Yeah, so Angelia, actually, you explained previously that you used like a grounded methods, right? Is it including to categorize this video that you found on TikTok?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, first of all, because I have some early assumptions for the categories, but then as I scroll through, when I was collecting samples, as I scroll to 100 TikTok videos, there are some categories that show up, and then I also include that on the finding result.
Mm-hmm. And from your findings, I mean that the preliminary findings, the entertainment category is the most preferred one, right? Compared to other categories.
Yes, because it generated almost 50% of the overall engagement from the 100% of videos shown when I was collecting the samples.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The second question is from Ms. Luciana Sibarani to Dr. Yale. Did you also looking for domination or power may be related to Giddens theory in your research project?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hersinta and Mrs. Lucy. Actually, when we talk about the guidance theory, we are in the criticism era, and then indeed in the study of the postmodern era, other than talking about the domination, power, and we know that domination and power are indeed elements that build the dimension of the duality structure. However, but in this study, we only focus that there seems to be motive that agents and agencies may cooperate. So maybe to build the political economy of the media, or maybe it's just boredom or just entertainment. We don't know. We're gonna find this result on the field.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gio, for the explanation. Ms. Lucy, do you have any other questions or comments? Feel free if you want to open your mic or you want to type it in the chat box. It is totally okay. But for Dr. Gio and Wirawan, I'm also interested in the previous what I'm talking before, like when you do your observation, your preliminary research, do you observe like is it any similar tendency from other media companies to monetize more light content like popular culture, like in horror stories and probably any other contents in podcasts or in other forms? I'm quite interested in that. Like probably it will refer to like a more new business model for the news media company currently.
Yeah, maybe when we talk about the media, the issue is always about the economy politic. From now on, maybe some at the Mrs. Hersinta mentioned before, the objective is to monetize everything. Maybe Wira want to address some feedback.
Sorry, Dr. Hera, could you please repeat one more time because my connection here is not really stable.
Sure. Like I'm interested to know if you've done some preliminary observation before with other media companies. Like, is there any similar tendency for them to selling more light content in the form of podcast or YouTube? I think like if we talk about traditional mainstream media newspaper like Compass, like they have a Sunday newspaper, right? Creating and sharing more live features, articles about culinary, comic strips. That is like a traditional way, and now it happens again, like you found with Tirto.Id, but in a different platform. They use now podcasts, probably content in YouTube. So do you do like observation in other news media company? They get a similar tendency like that, producing podcasts or any other digital content based on pop culture content, like horror stories or music or whatever.
Actually, according to our preliminary research, preliminary findings, we found that this phenomenon does not only occur in Tirto, but also happens in other media, like Tinggal Nama podcast channel that is maintained by Kompas. As we know that Kompas is a really prestigious online media or prestigious journalism company in Indonesia. They also maintain a specific podcast channel that's specifically aimed for producing mystery contents. It's different from Tirto. Tirto's podcast channels ranges from popular culture and then culinary and other even political contents. But podcast channel that is maintained by Kompas through its Tinggal Nama podcast channel specifically built for mystery contents, because one of my friends worked as the sound editor, and he mentioned that in producing a podcast channel, a podcast series, the producers always instruct him to put some adding effects to create like a stage of mind, something like that, to or even the owl sounds to how to say that, to increase the sense
like to lift
of
the dramatic.
Dramatic. Yes. We still do not find yet any ads or any sponsored contents that is immersed in this podcast channel, but we do not limit our explorations. That would be an interesting point of view. Thank you, Dr. Hera.
Yeah, that's right. Because I also watch similar trend in podcasts from outside Indonesian users, not in particular media company, but there are media company producing podcasts like criminal stories and unsolved mysteries like X-Files in the form of podcast, and they have like 100 subscribers. So actually, it's a like very profitable content, and probably one of the source for a news media company. Yeah. Okay, I think we still have questions in the chat box from Miss Leah. Is there the results said how autism as a commodification which creator made to its content? Oh, that's for me, I think. So this is a very interesting question. I haven't do more observation about the commodification category of autism tweets, but you gave me an idea to look more on my findings, because when I did my research project about this Twitter and autism, my focus is more like I want to know how the Indonesian Twitter users' perspective in understanding autism, like whether they view it from the medical point of view, which is like very traditional, conventional point of view in looking at disability, or they already moved to more inclusive point of view, like we call it in a disability studies, we call it social model. So looking at the disability now, not as an impairment, not only as a biological condition, but disability is also caused by the unequal infrastructure from the society. Yeah, so actually that's one of my focus. But if we talk about commodification, I think I found some negative cases actually discussed on the Twitter users back in, I think, 2014 or 2015. They talk about the misuse term of autism, like they use the term autist to label people with antisocial behavior, which is not correct. But yeah, like some of the Indonesian people, like musician and comedians, sadly, at that time use those misused term for their art creation, like in the songs, like in the jokes. So yeah, it drove a lot of protests, especially from the parents from the organization, autism organization derived by parents. So yeah, I think that is a good suggestion that I can look again at my findings and see if there's any tendency of commodification for content related with autism on Twitter. Thank you so much. Okay, another questions from the audience. I think we still have like around 10 minutes. Hopefully, Dr. Babak, before moving on to the next session. Any question? Or Aditi, probably you can explain about the measurement to assess what is called effective online campaign, like how we can call it, how can we evaluate that this campaign is effective and other campaign it's not effective. Probably you can share more about that, and our participants also can make use of your experience on doing your research.
On Twitter, there is measurement to measure the engagement by numbers of retweeting, numbers of reply, numbers of comments, something like that. That's and also how the hashtag itself can derive attention to the account. So on my work now to campaign a plastic diet, we also use the local language and also the global language to have this issue, to have the message go viral, and other can see how really relatable this issue to themselves. So the key point is to make conversation in that social media, and in each platform they have their own measure. Like Facebook, they have their insight, and also Instagram, Twitter have also the measurement for creating impression, engagement. But the point in my research that those tweets who has the highest engagement, we can call is the impactful message to the audience.
Okay, thank you, Diti. And also the category of the information of the tweet. Does it help to see if the campaign by Safe Sharks has actually achieved their goals? Like if we see that more tweets about information, but probably more tweets about what do you call that? Not activism, action is related to more successful campaign, or actually it's not related to the measuring the campaign whether it's successful or not.
It is not about successful or not, but we found that we assumed before that the followers are more interested in information types, like the type of sharks, how the finning situation in Indonesia. But as we saw from the results, the highest engagement from action message is like lobbying and advocacy to the government. So my recommendation for another campaign for environmental issue is increasing the number of lobbying and advocacy matches to the social media accounts, because nowadays we got a lot of information and people can saw that information easily, but by doing advocacy and lobbying, especially to government, not all the organization will do that. So we also found that the lobbying and advocacy campaign or message in Safe Shark tweets is getting high engagement from the followers.
Yeah, I agree to what you said. Like tweets and messages in lobbying and action can bring the campaign to a higher level, to collaborate with the government and other shareholders, right? To like developing a policy or like defining what can be focused to do in the campaign further. Okay, thank you so much, Diti. I think it's time. It's nearly 5:20 in Jakarta, so 20 minutes past 4 in Bangladesh, I think. So I want to close this session by highlighting some interesting points brought up from the presenters and brought up in our discussions. So actually, we are witnessing the massive changes in how media is produced and consumed in digital era. It's not happened only in Indonesia, it also happened in other countries in the world, and including the involvement of users as the content creators or as the activists or as the marketers. I guess one of the important elements that we discuss here today is storytelling and the narrative element in messages we create and share. Human beings are storytellers, us are storytellers. We love to create, we love to share and listen to each other's stories. And in this digital age, those narratives were amplified through social media platforms like Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and other platforms. So either we want to make profit from our stories, or we want to create social movements and advocacy for humanity and environmental issues. In the future, we will see more and more changes to the media industry and also the impact for us, human and the society, how we create our own narratives through online platforms. Thank you so much for all of our presenters today, Dr. Geo, Mr. Wirawan, Ms. Angelia, Ms. Diti, for sharing your remarkable works. I wish you a very big success with your publication and the continuing of your research project. And also thank you for all participants who joined our discussion today. It was a lovely time. It was a pleasure to have you with us. And I will hand the session back to our convener. I can see Dr. Barbak is already on the podium to close the session and introduce us to our next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hersinta. But I see there is a question in the chat box for Sofia that just popped up. So we have some time. So if you want, like
sure.
Sofia can still answer this question.
Okay, thank you.
Though you made the closing, but still, I think that's okay because.
Thank you so much for reminding me.
No, that just came up when you were talking. You were closing the session, so you are not supposed to see that. So I think as we have time, the other times we do not have enough time to answer the questions. Now we have time, so let us answer the question. Sophia, over to you.
Okay, thank you for the latest question. I guess is can be applied to any message for environmental issue, especially those issues that has a fear message before. I have read the formula to campaign the environmental issue because we usually communicate the bad impact, the fear message about environmental issue, but we forgot to deliver the love message. It can be applied to any environmental issue. So for Safe Shark case, we deliver the message by doing a love message. We create an icon with a very cheerful and very colorful icon to engage kids especially, and we create some story. Yeah, if you eat shark and then you cannot eat crab, or if you cannot shrimp and you cannot eat sushi as your favorite food. So it has to be relatable, but it has to be lovable. So for any issue that we saw the bad impact and the fear message, we have to apply the love message. I think it's my short answer to those questions.
Okay, so thank you, Sofia, for attending the question. And thank you again so very much, Dr. Hersinta, the panel chair, and of course, the other presenters for your very lively presentations. Of course, Dr. Geofakta, Razali, Angelia, Loreta, Adithiyasanti, Sofia, and of course, panel chair, she also presented a paper. So I must, I think, thank her twice for chairing the session and participating as a presenter. And of course, this is very important to talk about these issues that you presented your insights in this panel: digital media in Indonesia, audience access, and commodification. As we all know, that digital tools and platforms have become a very integral part of our life, especially social media. And it is quite important now that we look into the issue, we investigate the access, consumption, and effects of social media and such tools or platforms. And I think most of the papers presented in this panel certainly add to the discourse. I hope the audience have enjoyed the session. As we approach to the closure of this session, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would take this opportunity to express again our sincere thanks and gratitude to LSPR Communication and Business Institute for supporting us as an associate partner. I hope our relationships will grow further in future. Moving on, we'll have another research panel entitled Digital Media, Power and Contestation in Contemporary Indonesia, presented by a panel of faculty and students from Pelita Harapan University, one of our associate partners. Will please allow us a few minutes to prepare for the next session. We will return shortly, to be more precise, at 4:30 p.m. Bangladesh Standard Time and 5:30 p.m. Indonesian Standard Time. Thank you.